Notwithstanding the controversial mistreatment of its star, and the luridly curious draw that gives the film, The Birds is brilliantly crafted in the way it builds the scares up to its frightening climax. As a central motif, isolation is reinforced throughout the film. From the moment Melanie leaves the city early in the film, we see her first traveling down an empty country road to the small seaside town of Bodega Bay, then further to Mitch's door by boat. She enters the empty house to leave the lovebirds for Kathy. She stays with Annie next to the old schoolhouse at the edge of town. Lydia drives to Dan Fawcett's farm in the early morning. During the gas station attack, we see the diner emptied out, with everyone hiding in the back. They're all lonely, quiet locations, with no background music to suggest a mood. This creates a palpable feeling of uneasy isolation that the bird attacks play against. This was something Hitchcock experimented with in other films, notably in North by Northwest. The long wait in a quiet place, followed by being attacked out in the open where there's nowhere to hide. In The Birds, this scenario is taken to the extreme. Perhaps most brilliantly in the phone booth sequence, mixing claustrophobic panic with the fear of outdoor attack at the same time. This repeating countdown, or rhythm, of violent attacks punctuating long quiet passages has an almost musical quality to it, keeping the audience in a heightened state of expectation. This has become a tried-and-true formula nowadays, but The Birds was probably one of the first films to really make it work. In the famous schoolyard scene, the use of a children's sing-along mirrors the flocking of crows, self-referencing this musical idea of counting down. As the film moves towards its climax, we are also introduced to the idea of the threat getting more intimate. Home invasions occur, earlier by small birds, but by the end, Mitch has to barricade the family against a full-on assault, blocking doors and shutting windows, a motif of Last Stand that now reappears regularly in cinema, notably in zombie films. The final upstairs attack on Melanie is the height of this invasion threat, but more on that later.
Birds are not aggressive creatures, miss. They bring beauty into the world. It is mankind...
Sam, 3 southern fried chicken. Baked potato on all of them.
Yes, may I speak to Mitch Brenner, please? Yes, I'll wait.
2 Bloody Marys, Deke. What actually happened at the school?
Bunch of crows attacked the school kids. It's the end of the world. Thus saith the Lord God unto the mountains and the hills and the rivers and the valleys, Behold, I, even I, shall bring a sword upon you, and I will devastate your high places. Ezekiel chapter 6.
Woe unto them that rise up early in the morning, that they may follow strong drink.
Isaiah chapter 5.
Yes, all
It's
right.
the end
I'll
of the
wait till
word.
you're here.
Using humor and light dialogue to further divide the attacks from the quiet gives the audience a moment to breathe, but also increases the tension as well, as it illustrates a casual attitude towards a threat we know as the audience is going to ultimately shatter the civility of the threatened citizens. To be sure, Mitch and Melanie seem to have a strange relationship in The Birds. From an acting and script standpoint, they don't seem to mesh in a believable way. They meet accidentally, he recognizes her from court and thinks she's a spoiled troublemaker. So, being challenged by him, she proceeds to stalk him and do a nice deed, bringing his sister the lovebirds, which seem to symbolically indicate a sexual advance in the script's language.
Oh, pretty. What are they?
Lovebirds.
I see.
You did say birds.
Yes, lovebirds.
Oh, I see.
They argue about who they are, with Melanie having to defend herself while Mitch's character seems unassailable, or at least never questioned.
Seriously, why do you have to rush off? What's so important in San Francisco?
Well, I have to get to work tomorrow morning, for one thing.
You have a job?
Yet ultimately, these two are romantically grounded by the attacks. And this is a piece of bootstrap plotting that undermines any romantic chemistry, in that the bird attacks are seemingly caused by their relationship, and their relationship is seemingly caused by the bird attacks. Like the novelette, the reason for the attacks is never determined, yet it is made very plain in the script that Melanie has brought the birds with her, symbolically by bringing the lovebirds, and by romantically or sexually intruding into Mitch's family life.
They said when you got here the whole thing started. Who are you? What are you? Where did you come from? I think you're the cause of all this. I think you're evil! Evil!
Stranger still when you consider the film has no actual love scene, only after-the-fact implied intimacy. And by the end, nothing is resolved. The attacks continue, the family and Melanie escape. This would be fine if there was some resolve of the tensions between the characters in a reasonable way, but the only thing that feels like closure at the end is in the car when Lydia finally embraces Melanie and smiles, indicating she now accepts her as her son's lover, but only after she's been symbolically violated in the upstairs attack. There's something plainly off-putting about the climax, to which I have a theory, and it relates back to Psycho. I think the original idea for the screenplay involving the town having a secret that causes the attacks is key. The Birds, on its most primal level, is a nightmare of Oedipal props and psychology. This is plainly highlighted by the discovery of Dan Fawcett with his eyes pecked out. It's Oedipus with his eyes gouged out. I don't think it's any accident that Hitchcock was exploring dysfunctional mother and son relationships in Psycho. The mysterious blonde woman he was constantly reinventing and symbolically destroying in his films was an avatar, I believe, for his own mother issues, kicking something inside. If you look at The Birds as a companion piece or spiritual sequel to Psycho, it has many similar elements and thematic beats. A son with a controlling mother, a desirable blonde woman who disrupts the routine, violent attacks that seem to hinge on sexuality, violent violation of the main female lead, and a structure that leads us to a climactic scene in a hidden space in the family house. And this is where Melanie's seemingly unmotivated trip upstairs to be attacked starts to make sense. At the end of Psycho, Lila Crane has come to the Bates house looking for her sister Marion and sneaks into the basement where the shocking secret of that family is revealed, that Mrs. Bates is long dead and Norman has taken her place. This is the real horror of the film. Not the violence of the killings, but the underlying cause, this twisted man who murders his mother, then keeps her alive by becoming her. The Birds, then, also follows this same narrowing of location and theme, going home, and then going to the dark place in the house. Lila goes to the basement. Melanie goes upstairs. The fact that there's no reason for her character to do this in itself should indicate there was a thread here that wasn't followed through on. The room Melanie enters is a bedroom. Before she's set upon, for a second we see the trappings of a bed with a fancy frilled awning, covered in crows, symbolizing death, and referring back to the dead husband Frank. Mitch's father Frank is dead, and Mitch has pretty much taken over as man of the house. If we know the bird attacks relate to Melanie's sexual assertiveness, and they flock before they attack, why then are they flocking in the mother's bedroom? Obviously so they can attack her when she pointlessly searches upstairs, but I think the original metaphorical edge of this story is that, like Psycho, there's something not right between this mother and son. There's something not right in the master bedroom. If Melanie is a threat to Mitch's mother, then the implication is that the mother and son relationship is suspect. This is the thing that Melanie has uncovered. It is the thing that causes the attacks. Now, I'm not saying this idea was on the table when they wrote the final script, but I do think it was under the table. That the Oedipal scenario was the unconscious seed of how this story was written. But then as the film evolved, they tried to write away from that core, to not go there. To the point of having Annie Hayworth tell the audience that wasn't what the story was about.
So what's the answer? Jealous woman, right? Clinging, possessive mother? Wrong. With all due respect to Oedipus, I don't think that was the case.
And having a scene between Lydia and Melanie to humanize Lydia more, and defining her as needing her son's support.
I don't even know if I like you or not.
Is that so important, your liking me?
Oh, yes, I think so. Mitch is important to me. I want to like whatever girl he chooses.
And perhaps if you don't.
Well, then I don't think it'll matter very much to anyone but me.
Oh, I think it would also matter to Mitch.
Mitch has always done exactly what he wanted to do. But, you see, I don't want to be left alone. I don't think I can bear to be left alone. Oh, forgive me. Oh, forgive me. This business with the birds has upset me. I don't know what I'd do if Mitch weren't here.
Why don't you try to sleep now, Mrs. Brenner?
This is a scene I would guess that Hume Cronyn provided some input on. Whatever the final thematic intentions were, for me they don't remove the eerie suggestiveness of the 1 second we see of the bedroom. To me this image says something is very wrong, and that this single image is what the film is really about. But that's my opinion. The Birds remains a cult classic, a strong film of unresolved isolating tension that persists in the DNA of American horror films, both for its controversy and its wealth of cinematic style. Till next time.